next question is, some residents have said they would like to see improvement in government efficiency. What reforms would you prioritize to improve the effectiveness and accountability of county operations?
Yeah, this is a background that I have. I used to do policy work at the state level, did government operations work, served on the government operations committee on the council for many years. I've restructured and reorganized large government agencies at the state level, and that's exactly what I would like to do. At the county level, I've been pounding the table on it as a council member. We have heard for years that the current county executive was going to undertake a large restructuring and reorganization of county government. It has not happened, and we need it to happen to ensure that we can provide the services that residents rely on and that they need. So we need to do a top to bottom review of every single department. We need to be thinking through what programs work, what programs don't work. We need to be thinking through the number of vacancies. We have hundreds and hundreds of government employee vacancies. And with those vacancies, there's an opportunity to make changes. You don't have to uproot and disrupt people's lives, the hardworking public servants that we have doing the work in county government. We have enough vacancies in county government to make significant changes without having to impact actual workers. In terms of the front-facing government dynamics that we have, there are major changes that we can make on the permitting process, for instance. We can make it more accountable. We could have a process where you can see online where you are in the process. We need to make it more consistent. We need to make it more responsive. We need to make it faster. I'm not saying that the government should give you the answer that you want every time. I'm just saying that the government needs to give you an answer every time, and that the answer needs to be consistent regardless of who you talk to or who you are. You know, too often the processes have gotten so complicated and so difficult to navigate that it requires either a lawyer or a personal relationship to navigate it. And that's not fair. And that's not equitable. And the people who get hurt by that are new families, new businesses, new workers. A lot of those are immigrant families and immigrant businesses who don't have those connections and don't have those long-standing relationships. And all they're trying to do is provide for their family. All they're trying to do is start their business, open their restaurant. And we need to change that. We need to fix that. And we can. But it requires a commitment to actually bringing folks together, getting the recommendations that we need, and implementing the recommendations. We have examples of times where we have, you know, reports and we have options that have been presented and recommendations that have been provided. The issue isn't knowing what to do. The issue is having the leadership to execute actually doing it.
Thank you. Moving on to the next one, sensitive issue currently for the immigrant community. So some residents have raised questions about cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. How would you approach compliance with federal ICE requirements while also addressing concerns about protecting immigrant communities in Montgomery County?
Yeah, this is an easy one because there is total unanimity across county government. And I think that is an important situation, and we're fortunate to have that in Montgomery County. We are a county of immigrants. We are a country of immigrants. We are standing by our immigrant community as this federal administration has thrown out the law and is taking action that are placing significant harm and significant risk on our community. So we just passed the Trust Act. I was a proud sponsor of that legislation, as were all of my colleagues. I stood together arm in arm with every single one of our council members and executive to stand up for our immigrant community and to stand against ICE and this administration for the horrific actions that they are taking. We are utilizing everything within our power. We supported the state's effort to prohibit the agreements between law enforcement agencies and ICE, the 287G agreements as they're known. And we're taking all opportunities that we can. We're taking action within our power to prohibit ICE detention centers from being built in Montgomery County as they're being pursued in other jurisdictions around the country and around the state, and the state is suing in order to assert our rights and our role. And so that's the kind of policy side of it. There's also the reaction, the response side of it. And we have put together as a county rapid response teams working with organizations like Identity and CASA and others to be able to react and respond if and when action is taken against one of our residents, where we can support their family, we can support their spouse, we can ensure that we're providing them the legal representation and resources to fight back to the extent that we can. You know, we're limited in our power at the local level, but we do have power, and we are utilizing it to the extent that we can. And where we don't have power, we are using our voice and our advocacy and standing together as a county government, as a community, loudly and in unison to stand up for our immigrant community. And we will continue to do that. And I will use every ounce of my being in order to make sure that we do.
Thank you. During the recent school closures, many working parents reported difficulty securing childcare. What role do you believe the county government should play in supporting families during the closure or dissertation? I think I'm going to explain a little bit this question. During the closures, you might know, you will know soon since you just have a baby. 90%.
I have 11 nieces and nephews. So
okay, good. Most of the 90% of daycares who follow the county school closures, and parents are paying this daycares a huge amount of fees, but they do automatically close because the school closes. And we understand the school is closing because of their parking lot is not clean or school buses. However, we believe this daycares do not face this hindrance and, the reason for them to close. So we want to see, parents would like to see if there is any law legislation to stop this daycares for completely closing because the school closed, especially, the young kids daycares. If they have a preschool, things like that, we understand, but for babies and things like they close. And then another is when the school closed, parents automatically are expected to come to work. There is no cooperative working with other local jurisdiction governments or federal agency to emphasize or not enforce or encourage those private companies also to have make it friendly for working parents. Because unfortunately, if we close, we close. We have to stay home. Parents have to stay home. And most of our community members also are federal layoff employees, and they were just able to secure a job, and they have to be out for a week and possibly also lose their job again. So we just wanted to see how the county can step in, put in some kind of legislation or law, or encourage the new county exec come in to have this communication with local government to have working parents friendly county or state.
Yeah, so I don't think we have a legislative role here. I don't think we have the power to dictate like the hours of operation or closures on private childcare facilities or to compel other governments or federal government on their policies. However, the county executive plays a significant role and has the power of the bully pulpit, can advocate, can convene, can encourage. And I think more can be done in that regard to support working families. This is an important issue for me. Obviously, it's very personal to me right now, but I led the effort. I created and passed legislation for guaranteed parental leave for county employees. There was no county parental leave policy until I passed a bill to ensure it. And I'm very proud of that. Over 1,100 county employees have benefited from that legislation. Over 10% of our workforce in 3.5 years has benefited from that directly. So I feel very strongly about that. I passed a law to require, called the Right to Nourish Act, to require nursing facilities in all of our public buildings for our workforce. So I believe very strongly in providing as much opportunity for working parents and working families as we can. And I mentioned I have worked really hard to support, to make it easier for childcare and early child education to function, to operate, and to continue. We have an opportunity, particularly with the local childcare and early childcare facilities to convene them. This is an ongoing dynamic. We have for a long time had an organization called Montgomery Moving Forward, which is a public-private partnership. We now have a public-private entity that came from that, and that provides us with an opportunity to convene nonprofit, for-profit, and other childcare organizations to advocate for issues. So I would use that as a platform to encourage those organizations to decouple from Montgomery County Public Schools. I think they did that for ease of issues, also perhaps because of staffing concerns and issues for those childcare employees who also have kids in the school. But Montgomery County Public Schools closes a lot these days, and it's probably not practical or necessary in many cases. And so having that conversation, convening those conversations, encouraging that not to happen, understanding the impact that it has on families, I think is really important. And I do think there's a role for the county executive, perhaps not a legislative role, but there is a leadership role that the county executive can play, because there's nothing more impactful for our families. And then the last piece of this is, I think there's also a leadership role to the broader economy in the business community. I do think I have some credibility with the business community, uniquely of other candidates, to explain on days where childcare is closed, providing some flexibility to your workforce to understand that you have to make some concessions, because there are some days where it is unavoidable that childcare will have to close. And if it does, it is good practice to treat your team well, to say, okay, we understand that might mean you have to come in later, leave early, or flex your schedule, or work virtually, or have some other alternative. Not every job allows that. Some jobs require presence. Some people work hourly. This isn't a perfect solution, but there are things that employers can do, that I believe employers should do, that I think would be good for them and good for our working families.
I just want to add to this question. I think we can say for sure that it's multifaceted issue, and maybe Department of Public Works can play a role in this as well, in cleaning up the roads efficiently, and not snow stay on the roads for that 1, 2, 3 weeks.
I was very critical of the current executive administration's response to snow. I do think this is a core function of the county executive, and I do think ensuring in county government, my view of county government, and as someone who's running for county executive, is that it's local government's job to do the nuts and bolts of government. That means picking up people's trash and their recycling in an efficient way. That means clearing the snow when it happens. These are the core government functions. That means fixing the potholes. So for all the conversations and the excitement that we have around new programs and new policies and new initiatives, our main job is to get the basics done right. That's what families are relying on us to do more than anything else. And when we fail to do that, we have massive disruptions to families and to local businesses. And I think that needs to be our priority. My big advocacy is that if we want to prove that government can do big things, we have to prove that government can get the small things done right every day, all the time, starting at the local level. And that's really my focus as county executive. And I think that's what people care about the most.
Great. So next question is, some small business owners have said they face rising operating costs and regulatory requirements. What change, if any, would you propose to support local small businesses?
Yeah, we've got to make it easier to invest in Montgomery County. We have to make it cheaper. We have to make it faster, and we have to make it easier. It is too hard to start a business. It is too hard to run a business in Montgomery County. The permitting process needs to be completely overhauled. I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of things that we can do, and we don't have to recreate the wheel. There are jurisdictions all over the region that are doing the permitting process better than we are, and we can take some of the best practices from DC, from Northern Virginia, from other Maryland jurisdictions to put them in place overnight. We need to create a culture of yes. Our job is not to save the world from you, and a small business is not evil. Our job is to help you open safely, as quickly and efficiently as possible, and work together to make that happen. We need to make sure that the process is consistent and transparent. We have to eliminate the days where one inspector shows up and tells you 3 problems. You fix those 3 problems, and then a few weeks later, another inspector shows up and they come up with new problems. And for months and months and months, for longer than you even know, you get stuck in purgatory, so to speak. You don't know when you can open. You don't know what the rules are going to be. You don't know what you're being graded on or judged on in order to be able to open your business. I think in the interest of trying to protect the public, we end up doing more harm than good. The public wants the restaurant to open. The public wants the small business to provide services in their community. The public does not want an empty space that can't open and they can't figure out why. And the public wants those businesses to be able to stay open, for a long period of time, to continue to provide jobs and to provide the type of energy and amenities in our community. So, we need to do better in this. We need to be serious about it. We need to treat businesses not as sources of revenue that fund programs that we actually care about. We need to focus on businesses as the actual things that we care about. And people who own businesses understand and appreciate the risk that they take, the sacrifice that they're making with their families, oftentimes putting everything on the line in order to try to start a business and create a life and create opportunities here. If we really want to be the place that honors the immigrant story in Montgomery County, that is the story of our country, and in many ways is the story of our county, 1/3 of which is foreign born, we have to support small businesses, because that is overwhelmingly the path that immigrants have taken in this country, that have driven our economy and powered our economy for centuries.
All right. Now to the final question, Jeleni, that's going to be
the last
yours.
one. The Montgomery County is home to a diverse range of cultures, including the large Ethiopian and African diaspora community. Is there a culture, tradition, food, music, or local gathering that you especially enjoy or has helped you better understand the community?
Well, Ethiopian Day in downtown Silver Spring, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. There's too many to name, but I'll name that one. My favorite part of Montgomery County, my favorite part of this job, is my access and my invitations that I get and my enjoyment that I get at the breadth of the diverse cultures, celebrations that we have in our community. It really is the rich tapestry that strengthens who we are and what we are and who and what we believe in. That is true of food. People ask me, what's my favorite food? And the answer is anything ethnic, honestly. I don't need a cheeseburger. I want not just the food, but the story behind the food. I want not just the food, which I love, but I want what comes with the food, the conversation. There's nothing more intimate from my perspective than breaking bread with someone to understand, their culture. You carry tradition from, in my culture, you say Lador Vador, from one generation to the next. You carry that through food more than anything else. Almost every religious and cultural festivity, food is the central part of it. You know, in a home, what is the central part of a home? It's the kitchen. You know, the joke is the other rooms are irrelevant. Everybody ends up just congregating around the kitchen. When it comes to music, so much of what I think many of us in this country who were born in this country take for granted, there is no American culture without world cultures. Our culture is, even the things that we think are American are not really American. There are some native culture, and then there are other cultures that we have sometimes hijacked, to be honest with you, and appropriated, but other times have brought into into our culture. That's true of music. That's true of food. That's true of virtually everything. So Ethiopian Day, if you had to just the strength of that, I will say, I think more than any other cultural event is the magnitude of it. You know, you get at that event what you get at a lot of events, which is the food, the music, the energy, the rich culture. But what you get there is all of those things in a high dosage, that is really moving. Arts and crafts and others, and in artisan, the stalls and everything at each of the tables. But what you get there is you see the magnitude of how large this community is, where you're not in one room, one room couldn't hold that event. And I will say that is just what is so when you see that crowd dancing and, the music blasting and the smell of the food, and it's just the energy, you can feel it. And I talk a lot about, when you talk about community, you talk about culture. It's hard to define, but you know it when you see it because you can feel it. And at that event, you can feel, what does it mean to be in Montgomery County? What does it mean to be, in a county of immigrants, in a country of immigrants? What does it mean to be in the place that has the highest proportion of the diaspora, living in our area? Show up to downtown Silver Spring and you will feel it. I can't really write it out. I can't really explain it, but I'll bring you with me and you'll see it for yourself. And so that to me is the best. But I only have one daughter, so I can say who my favorite daughter is. It's hard to say what your favorite cultural or ethnic event is in Montgomery County, because we are so blessed to have so many.
All right, thank you. That's all we got for you. But before we part, if you have any last statements, please go ahead.
Well, I just want to express my appreciation to you both for your work in informing our community, which is so important, and in being a bridge and a connection between government and political leadership and community, which we need more of, particularly at this challenging moment where there is understandable mistrust in government. And the federal government has hurt the local government's ability to make people feel safe and make people want to access services and make people comfortable living here and being here and feeling safe to access that. So I appreciate you helping us get the message out and building those bridges and that gap. And just I hope you know how grateful I am to you and to the community, and to call myself, as we all do, someone who's lucky enough to call Montgomery County home.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.